Okay, my name's John Davis and I'm with Linehaul Central, and I want to go over everything about Motive ELD and the transition and try to give you all some resources to help you with this transition on the Motive ELD. So today we're going to go through the transition. We're going to go through the equipment requirements, driver training, manager training, best practices, and we got some resources, and we'll do some question and answer at the end. So as many of you know, that Linehaul has made a decision to transition to the Motive ELD as a single platform. And there's a lot of different things that happen that is causing this to transition to a single platform. If you think about our network, we have drivers that are working in one contract, and a contractor can have more than one contract, and drivers are bouncing from working from this contract to this other contract where they could work 4 days in one and then another one in another day. And having two ELDs with Trimble and Omnitracs has been problematic for them to get good data to see what is going on with this. And if you think about that, you're trying to track 70 hours of work for a driver, and if they're bouncing from one contract to another, and if one contractor has Omnitracs and another contractor has Trimble, then that's been problematic and that's been causing issues. So FedEx has made the decision to transition everybody to the Motive ELD by August of 2026. There's announcements in My Ground Biz on that will keep you up to date. I believe it's the end of August of 2026. But as you're going through the transition, you obviously don't want to wait until the last minute to transition to Motive, but look at your contracts with your current ELD provider, whether it's Trimble or Omnitracs. I know a lot of contractors, they may have 5 ELDs that are under one contract, another 5 and another contract, and, get a hold of those contracts and figure out when those contracts are going to expire, and, look at those deadlines. We're heading into peak. Some contractors are transitioning right now. Others are going to wait until after peak to do the transition. But you just got to, do what's best for your operation in that. So the big problem that Linehaul has had is we as contractors and contractor drivers are not doing good with hours of service. The top 5 violations under the HOS basic score for the FedEx DOT number are form and manner issues, log certification, our drivers are not certifying their logs, drivers not taking their 30-minute break properly, and transferring logs to DOT officers are really struggling with that. And then falsifying logs. And the falsifying logs, where we're getting in trouble with that is a lot of that is PC usage and not using it correctly and those type of things. So the hours of service basic score is going way up for the line haul contractors under that DOT. And with transitioning to a single platform, Linehaul is going to be able to see more and more and more what's going on. Contractors are getting emails right now where they're saying, you have unidentified driving events, or you have missing logs, or you're having this. You're going to start seeing a whole lot more of that from a single system because they're going to have better data. So that's what's going on with this whole transition, is they've got to get the hours of service basic score down. And we, as contractors and contractor drivers, have got to do a lot better job on doing the basics with the ELD. So this is a great time to as you're transitioning over to Motive to make sure that we have all of that covered. I'm getting a lot of questions from contractors about the equipment requirements and the things that we're having to deal with as a whole with the Motive transition. So the first thing that you got to understand is Motive's a big company, and there is confusion with their salespeople of FedEx corporate versus the line haul contractor. So that's confusing when you're talking to Motive and you go, if you call them up and go, well, I'm a FedEx operation, well, they may get you over to the FedEx um, corporate side versus the um, FedEx service provider side. So making sure that you understand that the secret phrase that you're supposed to use with Motive is you are a FedEx service provider. So you're talking about the right things with them on that you're getting into the right system there. So Motive's going to give you a gateway, and when they get you set up, they're going to give you an access to your dashboard, and your gateways will be in the dashboard. And when you get that set up, you're going to add your tractors in to the dashboard, and then you're going to connect the gateways to the trucks that you put them in. And it's basically following the serial number of the gateway and hooking it to the truck. A lot of questions about tablets versus cell phones. I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences on that. Motive has 3 different partners that are resellers of tablets. You're welcome to use those, but you're not required to use those 3 resellers. You got to get a Samsung tablet. You can get it from, well, right now it's Amazon deal days, it's Walmart deal days, it's Black Friday in November. Get the best price you can on Samsung tablets if you go with tablets, and make sure that you get the mounts for them also. But you can get your own Samsung tablet and put this on. I have 1 or 2 contractors that are using iPads. You can use iPads, and that is something that you may choose, but it's a pricier model. Drivers using cell phones is allowed. It can. The dangers to a driver using a cell phone is you must have a cell phone holder, and the problem can be in a roadside inspection that the drivers get nervous on a roadside inspection and they pick up their phone out of the holder. Well, the DOT requires the phone to be in the holder until asked. So there's a little danger to that. There's a little danger to the drivers using their cell phone and their data for running the ELD. A lot of drivers have used Motive outside of, they work somewhere else, whether it was Keep Trucking back in the day, then it changed to Motive. They're familiar with this and they may be more comfortable on their phone. The other plus is with the Motive system is if the tablet has a problem, the driver can always move to their cell phone as a backup. So making sure that you know that that is a backup. Other things I've found out from other contractors, if you are using a Trimble tablet, not the Duo unit, or using the Omnitracs tablet, the XRS tablet, those are Samsung tablets. I know from Trimble, we verified that on their tablets, you can wipe that tablet and then install the Motive app on the Samsung tablet. You're good to go there. I do not have that from Omnitracs, but it it is a Samsung tablet if you're using the XRS model. So you may already have the equipment in your truck and you can just repurpose it for this. The other thing to understand is when you're talking to Motive, they're going to tell you that you have 400 megabytes of Wi-Fi data available. Our recommendation for a better driver experience is bring your own device, your own tablet, get cellular connection to those tablets. The problem that happens is with the 400 megabytes, Motive's going to tell you that's plenty, it's not going to be a problem. But what goes on in that system is the driver may experience where they have to have the Wi-Fi password from the device to the gateway to get them into the program. And for some of our drivers, that can be challenging. Is that, okay, now I got to figure out what the password is. I've got to get it connected. Then they got to connect it by Bluetooth after that. And what we're finding is if you get a tablet with cellular connectivity there, that Wi-Fi, you don't have to worry about it running out. And then we eliminate that password requirement once it's all connected. May still happen every now and then, but it's not going to be like every time the driver logs in. So that's something to think about when you're trying to source your tablets to go, find the best price on the tablet and then find the best cellular plan for your tablets on that. Another thing to understand about Samsung tablets and about our operation is those tablets do not like extreme cold weather or extreme hot weather. So if you're talking to Motive, they'll say, well, you just store the tablets in the office. We don't have that ability in our operation. We just don't. So you're going to have to come up with some solutions in there. If you're in the, higher parallels of the country and it's 30 below zero, those tablets are not going to do well sitting in those trucks in extreme weather. And then if you're in Arizona or something like that, they're not going to do well in extreme heat in those trucks. So trying to come up with some solutions on that, on putting them in some type of box or container or something in the truck that will help keep them cool or warm based based on that. So this is the big part is where you're going to have to make the business decision of how to do this, and you don't have to transition everything at once. If you're on Omnitracs or Trimble and you see a contract is coming to an end with 5, then do 5, and then do another 5, and then do another 5, and just work on getting that transition over by, I would try to get everything transitioned over by the beginning of next summer of 2026. Back to the driver phones. Another concern we have with the drivers and the phones is our drivers like to talk on the phone a lot. So if you think of how your phone works, if you're on the phone, then what's showing on the phone is the phone app, not the ELD. So think about that if you're thinking about using cell phones in your operation, that could be problematic. So keep that in mind there. Another thing to consider is if you decide to go with the Motive ELD and the better camera. The pro to that is when the driver logs into the ELD, it will tag them into the camera of identifying the driver. Where that is very problematic in handling vetter in our operation is with team drivers. It's okay, got to look for the driver that was driving at that time, or was it the mechanic that did a unidentified driving event and all that. It can help with trying to identify that. So that's the big pro of using the Motive Vetter camera with the Motive ELD is once the driver logs into the ELD, then they will have the camera tagged with them. Installation, you should get a installation instructions. During, you receive the box with the gateway, it should have the installation. We have a link for you that we'll provide to you after the webinar on the Motive installation page. All the trucks except the Volvos and Max, and it's always the Volvos and Max. There's a little bit more installation and installing these gateways into the panel and the top of the dashboard there. So it takes a little bit more on the Volvos and Max on that, but I wanted you to be aware that is a little bit more of an installation than the Freightliners. So one of the key things with the transitioning to a new ELD platform is we sort of take this attitude that, the driver has a CDL, they should know how to use an ELD. They've been using Omnitracs, they've been using Trimble. They should know how to use the Motive ELD app, and you really need to take it back to the basics with your drivers on training them on how to use the Motive app. The big things that are different in Motive on this is yard move. In Omnitracs and Trimble, the way that we did yard move is the driver would arrive at the terminal, they go to the gate, hit yard move, go drop their trailers, pick up their trailers, whatever they're doing on that, they come back to the gate, they would go off a yard move and all that. Motive does not work that way. Motive is a way of doing geofencing of your terminals. And when the driver enters the geofence, then it will automatically put the driver on yard move, and then it will take them off of yard move when they go out of the geofence. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. The Motive training that they have on their dashboard is all over the place. I went ahead and made all of y'all a driver training video for Motive, which we'll give you the link here at the end of this. And I wanted to be able to talk about, the yard move, personal conveyance, adverse conditions, what to do in a malfunction. The Motive ELD manual that you should have in your truck and the DOT instructions. The ELD manual is very basic for Motive. It's really just talking about transferring logs to the DOT and what to do in a malfunction. So the manual doesn't really have, how to select yard move or how to select adverse conditions or things like that. So I created that training for you so that will help with training your drivers on, okay, in our operation, this is how you're going to use this app. And I think that'll really help you with getting a better start with using Motive. Same thing I did with the manager training. There's a manager training video. Unfortunately, it's long, but thinking about our operation, that training is going to go through setting up your dashboard correctly, setting up your trucks correctly, setting up the drivers correctly, setting up groups. And let me talk a little bit about groups on this. If you own more than one contract ID and you're thinking about, well, I need a Motive contract for that ID, I need a Motive contract for this ID, you can do it that way. It's going to be a little problematic because what happens with a lot of those operations that have different contracts is driver A will drive for the first one and then they'll drive for the other one. And having the drivers in each of those accounts is going to be a administration problem for you. You either got to take it where, okay, I have all my trucks in operation one, have all my trucks in operation two, and then you got to put all the drivers for operation one and two in both of them to make that work. The other option, the easier option, is to have one Motive account for multiple operations, and you set up groups. And then you can have the drivers in one system with the trucks. And Motive makes it very easy for you to tag your trucks. Let's say you have in this contract 10 trucks and the other contract 10 trucks. So you have both in those in separate groups. And then the drivers can find those when they go from one operation to another operation. And that will help a lot with administering that. So you really got to think about that as what is my business decision to have different contracts for different Motive contracts for different contract operations. One of those business decisions may be, well, I want the money to be paid on that operation under there and this one over there. But groups is the way to get everything organized on that. Going back to geofences, this is where to streamline your operation that you're really going to have to do your homework and just spend the time to do this. So let's talk about our solo drivers. Our solo drivers are going from terminal to terminal. So you would have to geofence both of those terminals. So think about all your lanes that you got, and you're going to build your geofences, and you're going to look up the address in the geofence. Then you would name it. In the example I did in my video for y'all, it's okay. I got 303, 305, and 308 in Atlanta, and then I got 299 over in Savannah. You set up those geofences on that, and then that will really help with the yard move. Then you got to think about on the solo drivers that are doing bumps. Going to a bump, it's at a fuel station, halfway in between two terminals, and you need to geofence that because your driver is going to be using yard move at the bumps. Then you got your team drivers. Well, the dedicated is fairly easy, but the wild teams is going to be a nightmare because there's 6,000 terminals in the network, and it could be problematic on that. The geofencing for the yard move will really make you more efficient and really make it more efficient for the driver. But you're going to get in those situations, and I have it in the driver training on how they can select yard move and do everything from the driver app. It's just the problem with yard move inside the Motive app. In Trimble and Omnitracs, we're used to if they go a certain speed, then it kicks them out of yard move. Motive does not have that. There is no speed limit for yard move. So the driver could leave the terminal in yard move and drive in yard move, which is going to cause you issues on having to spend time to fix the logs. So the geofencing method is going to really help with solving that problem. Teach your drivers on how to transfer the logs. The way that I like to do the onboarding with drivers is during the onboarding process, put them in the driver's seat, put their seatbelt on, open the door, BC, trainer, lead driver, whoever you got that can sit with the driver and go, okay, show me the tractor binder, show me the ELD manual, show me the DOT instructions, show me a blank logbook, unmount the ELD from the mount and hand it to me. Show me you can log in. Show me how to transfer the logs. If you do it like that, it's going to get a lot better result for your drivers than just assuming they know how to do this. I also provide the training in the manager dashboard on how to transfer the logs from the ELD administration dashboard. The good and bad of that is, yes, you can transfer the logs from the dashboard. The bad is your driver's probably still going to get the violation because they couldn't do it on roadside. So again, make sure that you do that. The Motive dashboard is a lot easier to use than our experience in Trimble and Omnitracs. So when you log into the dashboard, it's going to tell you all the logs that you have, hours of service violations, form and manner, which we haven't had in the two other ELDs. So there's actually a tab on the right-hand side that will say that your drivers didn't put the trailers in or they didn't put in their shipments. And I want to be clear on this on shipments because I'll get with drivers or a contract and they'll say, well, FedEx doesn't have bill of ladings. Well, we still have to put something in shipments. So the answer on the shipments is we must put in the seal numbers of the trailers or put in MT for an empty trailer or BT that we're bobtailing. You've got to put something in shipments that meets the requirement of the DOT. That's the number one violation we're getting is form and manner. And where we're missing it on the roadsides across the network is we're not putting in shipments and we're not putting in our trailer numbers. So the way I train the drivers is learn to put the seal numbers in the shipment block. That's your bill of lading. That's the seal numbers. And then on the trailers, the way I teach the drivers to do it is lead trailer, dolly, pup trailer, and every trailer after. For the spot drivers, it's just a bunch of trailers. And I'll also get comments from drivers. They'll say the dolly is not a trailer. It shouldn't be in there. Put the dolly in there. You're going to get the one DOT officer that's going to say you didn't put it in there, and you're going to get a violation for that. So make sure that you get your drivers doing that every time. But if we can get the drivers to put in the seal numbers, put in the trailers, we can start driving that form and manner issue down. The other thing is to make sure that we clear out unassigned driving. Where we get a lot of problems with unassigned driving in our operation, if you think about our operation, is the driver drives at night, truck gets moved during the day, could be the BC, took it over to get it truck washed, mechanic picked it up, set up mechanic profiles and make them use it. That's the most aggravating thing with unidentified driving is you get people during the day that jump in a truck and move it 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, and you get those unidentified driving events and it's going to cause a big problem. So make sure you utilize mechanic profiles in this. You may have more than one. You could have, I'm operating out of 303 and then I'm operating out of 299 and I got a mechanic over here and a mechanic over there. Give them their separate profile and make them use that profile to keep those unidentified driving events down. So you're starting to see emails. The network is starting to see emails where the AO is getting emails from Linehaul saying, I've got missing logs. I've got unidentified driving events. I've got violations I'm showing for this driver. Watch the dashboard. The best way I can explain the ELD dashboard is you need to look at it daily. Don't turn your back on that thing. It's a toddler. It will get out of hand on you. And you need to get in there and clear all of the events out. And when you see the form and manner issues that the drivers are not putting in the trailers or the seal numbers, then you need to coach those drivers. The other thing that is real problematic in our network is certifying logs. I get drivers all the time that say, well, I'm a FedEx line haul driver. I'm exempt from certifying logs. That is not true. It's the way I explain it to drivers on certifying their logs is if you don't certify those logs and they're on the tarmac waiting for the ELD spinning, it's because they're trying that tablet is trying to download all those uncertified logs. And our drivers have issues with certifying logs for their days off. So they took their 34-hour reset or they were off a couple of days or whatever. They need to certify their logs. The Motive dashboard is going to make it very easy for you to see that and to make sure that they certify their logs every day. But if we can get that under control, we're going to have a lot of this problem solved for the basic score for the hours of service. Adverse conditions, understand about adverse conditions on that. Motive makes it very easy for the drivers to use adverse conditions. You don't want to abuse it. Personal conveyance is a real issue. Contractors are getting emails from line haul saying that you're abusing PC with 2 and 3 hours of drive time and all that, the Motive dashboard is going to show you all that and get really good at using personal conveyance. And a couple of things to think about in our operation. At 303 in Atlanta, the truck lot is about 5 miles away from the terminal, but it can take about 15 to 20 minutes to drive from the truck lot to the terminal. A lot of our operations like that. Cannot use PC from the truck lot to the terminal. That's an illegal use of PC. You can't have a solo driver that runs from one terminal to another terminal overnight and gets back to the original terminal and then drives an hour and drops a trailer at Walmart and goes home. That is not a legal use of PC. You've got to understand how to use PC and coach your drivers. This dashboard is going to tell you very quickly on where the PC problems are and make sure that you are in compliance with line haul. Another common problem with Motive is when you sign up with Motive, they're going to have your contract name in there, your contract address, and they're going to have your contract ID in there. And it will populate the DOT portion of your Motive automatically. You cannot use your contract name for this operation. Your carrier name, which is the Federal Express Corporation with the DOT number, must be in the ELD and then selected at the driver profile. So you put the carrier name in under the general settings. The video I provided you will show you how to do that. Then you go to the driver profile and you select the carrier. You cannot have your contract name as the carrier or you're going to get a violation for that. So make sure that you have that. Again, the best thing to do is to look at that dashboard every day, clear out any problems, coach your drivers, and stay ahead of the problems, because if you don't look at it every day, it's just going to snowball on you. Use those mechanic profiles to get those unassigned driving problems out of the way, and just make sure that you're checking every day on this stuff. So if you go to this website right here, the linehaulcentral.com/motive, it has, we'll upload the copy of the webinar after this, so you'll have it. You have a video on this website for the administration of this, and it's going to walk you through on how to set up everything on your dashboard. So I spent the time to say, okay, for our type of operation, this is how you're going to set everything up. And then for the drivers, it's talking about the things that are important for the drivers in our operation on that. Motive customer service, again, your secret phrase with them is I'm a FedEx service provider. That's the terminology that you're going to use on that. We also put the ELD manuals on that website. Download those, make sure they're in the tractor binder, make sure that your drivers can find it and that they know where it is during your roadside stops there. When you are contacting Motive, you can use the 855 number. I have found with Motive, if you log into your Motive dashboard and go to the very bottom, and I show you how to do this in that video I provided you, if you use the chat bot, you're going to get quicker responses on that. So when you go into the chat bot, you're going to put in there, I'm a FedEx service provider. I'm having this issue. Here's the serial number of the gateway. Here's the tractor it's in. And then they can get you to the right team. If you just put in that I'm with FedEx, they're going to get you over to the corporate people and you're going to be in a loop that you're not going to get out of. So make sure that you do that. But I found that the chat bot is really quick response with Motive, and that will help you. And then they also do a where you can download the chat and have it for your records. So you can say, well, I talked to so-and-so and this is how we got it done. And I think we have a couple of questions here. Does anybody have a question? Put it in the chat.
Hey, John, we've got like 12 questions in the Q&A.
Q&A, okay. All right. Yeah, so on the first one, is there any literature or guides available to assist? The guides are on the linehaulcentral.com/motive. Those are the ELD guides. And then the driver video is what you want to give your drivers. On the admin, I talk about in the admin video about making sure that you get your people trained on that. So you got to think about is am I going to have the AO in there? Am I going to have my BCs in there? Do I have a safety person in there? Do I have an admin person in there? Everybody you put in there should watch the video that I created on the admin so they have it done. The next one is I'm a driver and like to display my maps app when driving. Do I have to have the ELD app the whole time? No, you don't. It's the danger on, again, with the cell phone is whatever app you're using is what's going to be up. So just being sure that you understand where you are on your hours. So if you know that you're in 4 hours in and you know you're not taking your break for 4 hours, then obviously it's not a problem. But if you're getting up to, okay, I'm closing in on my 8 hours and you're going to miss it, then that's where it's going to be problematic on that. When is it beneficial to use a reseller versus getting the ELD from Motive? You've got to get the gateway from Motive. The tablets, it does not matter. And there's another question right under that that says, who are the 3 tablet resellers? I don't know those names for the person who asked that question, but I'll put it on the website link there so you have them there. You don't have to use the resellers, and is what I'm trying to say is it doesn't matter if you get the tablets from Motive or from Walmart, Costco, what Amazon, wherever you want to get your tablets is you're good to go. There's not really any benefit to the reseller. What I want you're all skilled business folks. I want you to get the best price you can on the tablets and what makes sense for your operation. Just don't feel on the tablets that you have to get them from Motive or their resellers. You just have to get the gateway from Motive, and that's what you got to do. Just to confirm, there is no unit available. We have to buy and use tablets. Yeah, you don't have to use the tablets from the Motive resellers. I think that's what this person is asking, is that use whatever's best for you. Do you have instructions on how to swipe Trimble's current tablet? Good question. No, but I can put those instructions on the website, and I think there's a way. I'll get you the instructions on that. That is a good question, and if I can find the answer for the Omnitracs XRS from Omnitracs, getting someone on the phone, then I'll put those instructions out there too. But if you have the Trimble Samsung tablets, then you're good to go on that. And can you provide installation guide for a Volvo Mac? If you go to the website that I provided and hit the installation guide, in the middle of the page is videos and step-by-step instructions for the Volvo and Mac. And it's a lot, I'm gonna tell you. We have been unable to get the automatic yard move based on geofences to work. What we have been able to do is have Motive switch our account to take drivers out of yard move once they go above a certain miles per hour. Do you have any idea how to get the automatic switch to yard move? Yes, there's a checkbox in the driver profile to make that work, and it's not the default checkbox. There's two more checkboxes on the yard move piece under the driver profile that you have to check to make that work, and that should solve that issue. What if you have two companies? Can the group them or need different accounts? Again, that's the business decision you've got to make. To me, the easiest way to do this is have one Motive account and then set up your groups and operate in one dashboard. Motive has told us from behind the scenes that they did not realize that contractors have more than one operation, and they're trying to build a parent-child option, meaning that you would log into the Motive dashboard and you'd have a drop-down box that would say contract A, contract B, and you could operate out of the same dashboard. Again, the problem with the separate accounts is if you have 10 tractors in one, 10 tractors in another, but you have 20 drivers, then you have to have 20 drivers in both accounts because your drivers are switching. So there is no switching the yard move manually. Yes, there is a way to do yard move manually. Unfortunately, in the app, it's going through about 6 steps to get to yard move. I encourage you to not just watch the admin video, but also watch the driver video. You'll see the screenshots on yard move for the driver app, and you'll see where it can be problematic for them because they go to the log, they pick the day, they go to the duty status, then they have to go to yard move, then they have to hit it, and it's not quite as easy as we've had it in other ELDs. When it comes to geofencing, is there a way to upload a spreadsheet into Motive and it automatically creates the geofences for you? I do believe there is an option for that. I do state in the admin training that there is a way to upload a sheet for your drivers and tractors. My hint on that is click the add button and see what the fields are in there to make sure that you have everything in your spreadsheet that matches the fields before you upload it on that. And so that could help with the geofencing on that. XRS Motive is easy to manage, but lacks details and depth that XRS has, especially when it comes to editing logs. Can you talk about log editing limitations and tips and tricks? Yeah, it's a more simplistic view in Motive. So you're going to get to the driver's log, you're going to go up to the top, you're going to go up to edit, and you're able to put in the edits. My biggest hint and tip I can give you on log editing is we need to do a better job on annotating what we're can do. And that will help with the log editing in there, and we'll do that. So there's information in the training video I give you on log editing and all that. I think the Motive does a better job with telling you what the problems are than Omnitracs and Trimble has done, especially in form and manner. So you're able to identify those issues and then going in and fixing those. Can we turn PC off? Yes. On the driver profile, there's a checkbox for PC, uncheck it, and then you can turn PC off. Who draws the geofences, contractors or Motive? It is the contractor. when you put an address in, so when I put 303, the Atlanta hub in, it knew it was a FedEx hub, and once I put the address in, it identified it as a FedEx hub, and then it drew the fence. So you can change it a little bit, because if you think about 303, and I've been there recently, that's why I'm picking on it today. You may have to geofence the terminal, and then you may have to geofence the truck lot, which is about 5 miles away. So you may have to have two there. And then if you're thinking about the Atlanta market and I got 305 and 308, you got to do all those. I know the geofencing is going to be a pain in our operation because of everywhere we're going and all that, but we can just do the best that we can. Where can we access the manager training video? On linehaulcentral.com/motive. That's there. Is there any drawbacks to installing both the ELD and the cameras? No, the big pro on the camera is once the driver logs into the ELD, it's going to tag them into the camera. The Motive cameras also have AI facial recognition that you can turn on that will help with that. But if you're using the ELD and the camera together, then it's going to help with that. What about Lytics versus Motive in-cab coachings? Which do you recommend? That's really what you prefer to use with that. If you're using the Lytics Better camera, that's where you want more of the real-time coaching on that. Motive does have a coaching solution for the ELD that makes it easy. So the way it is on the Motive dashboard is it'll identify a log problem. It'll have a blue button at the top that says this log needs attention, and then it'll give you the option to coach the driver on that. So unfortunately with Lytics and Motive, you're going to have two solutions there to do that. But I understand if you're using those two solutions, that's what you're going to have to do. Does Motive take the place of the Lytics camera in addition to the E-log function? If you get the Motive Vetter and switch out Lytics, then yes, it will do that. What Trimble and Omnitracs models, again, can convert to the Motive ELD? It is, in Trimble, it's the Trimble Connect, or it's a Samsung tablet. It's not the Duo model. It's not the older model. It's the one that looks like an iPad tablet. I do have several contractors that did away with the Duos and put their own Samsung tablets. Those tablets should be good to go. And then on Omnitracs is the XRS model. Is the driver app user manual the correct manual to print for DOT inspection purposes? Yes, that is that manual, the ELD manual. It talks about the DOT transfer instructions first, and then it talks about malfunctions and what to do in a malfunction. Any guidance on setting up cellular for the Omnitracs IVGs after they are wiped and converted over to Motive? The real question on that is when you look at the Motive tablet. Now the Omnitracs IVG, that one is, if it's the old IVG, that one's not probably going to work for this operation. It's going to, for what you're trying to do, you're going to need the XRS model on that. But if they are, I'm not real sure on that. For that question, I'll get the wipe instructions for Trimble and the XRS and the models, and I'll put it on the website later today and get y'all that. What are the basic requirements for the tablets, OS system size, memory? Like I said, I have a couple of operations that are using iPads. You can use the Motive app is on the iOS system, and the Samsung is an Android system. It works on that. And you don't need a whole lot. I do have some contractors that are making business decisions to go, okay, I have my Motive app on the Samsung tablet, I have my dispatching app on the tablet, I have my training app on the tablet. So to answer that question is think about what you're going to put on that tablet to give your drivers access. If you're using Whip Around or Fleetio, are you going to put that on there and just look at that? Do we have to buy data with the tablets? Our recommendation is to get cellular data with the tablets. I think it's going to be problematic relying on the 400 megabytes that Motive gives you from the gateway, that it's going to be connection problems. How do you recommend keeping Omnitracs logs when transitioning to Motive to stay compliant? That's a good question. Your drivers have to have the last 8 days logs. So think about that first, and then think about the data that is already in Omnitracs or Trimble that has already been transmitted to FedEx. So the regulation states that we must have the last 6 months of logs. I don't think you need to go in and download 6 months of logs, but if you transition to Motive today and your driver was in Omnitracs the last 8 days, you do need to download the 8 days and give them to your driver so they can have it for a roadside inspection. Is Motive actually approved? Yes, they are approved, and they were approved in May. And so I have contractors who are actively using Motive ELDs today. They are using them right now. Other than the Volvo and Max, is it generally a plug and play for other models? Yes, that's my understanding from watching the installation for the Freightliners. It's plug and play. The the big thing on the gateway is you want to, plug it into the port, and you want to get it hidden up underneath. We don't have this problem in our system that I don't see a lot of, where drivers are unplugging the ELD and stuff like that. But they give you zip ties. They give you there are 3M stickers on the back of it, so you can hide it up under there. The Volvo and Mac plug and play, it's a little more difficult. The video I watched on the Volvo and Mac for the installation is you have to pull the fuse panel from the top dash, and then there's a couple of plugs in there. If you plug it into the two plugs that they identify, they do a pretty good job about identifying it. Then you hide the gateway in there, and then you put the panel back on the top. Volvo and Mac, yes, it's plug and play, but it's Volvo and Mac. You're going to have a couple of more things to do there. All right. If you acquire a new company after, we'll be able to marry the other company, so all under one. Yeah, that's my recommendation is to have one Motive dashboard. The only business decision I can see from a contractor is if you have multiple contracts and you go, I want the Motive bill paid by that contract for that operation and that contract by another operation, that can be an issue. With the new Motive ELD being either cold or heat sensitive, are you recommending a way to protect them? What happens if the DOT officer asks to have the device handed to them? Usually it's handed from the mount. Good question. Where I'm talking about with the heat and cold is the truck that's parked. The driver's not in the truck, not in the sleeper berth. It's parked at the terminal. It's in Minneapolis, and it's 30 below zero. And, I'm thinking, some type of bag or some type of Pelican box or something to stick it in to try to protect it from the cold and the heat. Given that Motive will be required for all contractors, why not have Motive geofence all the FedEx? That's a good question. I think they have the data in Motive on doing that, but I'm seeing that when I was practicing with it, that you're just having to figure out where your operation's going. Again, the wild teams are the ones that's gonna be a headache. And I'll get back with Motive, the head people of Motive, and talk to them about that because I can make it a lot easier. Is it easy to add the camera later than the ELD as the current veteran contracts come to it? Yeah, that should be easy. It's a plug and play on the cameras also. The way that most of the cameras is it just plugs into the back of the ELD port. So the ELD would go in first, then the camera, and it makes it pretty easy to do that. Has there been any talks of any incentive from FedEx on the money side since we are now required a new ELD with only one bidder to choose from? Unfortunately, I have not heard anything on that. I know that Linehaul and FedEx have done that in the past. I have not heard anything about that, but we can see what happens on that. And I know it's problematic for you guys because some of you guys got multiple contracts that you got 5 ELDs in one contract, 5 ELDs in another contract, and it's a mess for you. So, can we get the tablets from Motive? They're going to send you to one of their 3 resellers. You don't have to use them, but you can use their resellers on that. I don't. There is no. There is no benefit. The reseller is just they've got the tablets and they can sell them to you. Get a phone number from your team to talk about their fuel cards. Yeah, Bethany, can you put that in the chat on that? As vetter, not sure what the question was there on that. We need the 7 years of logbooks for IFTA regulations. Are we able to retrieve that far back, or do we have to download every 6 months? It's the ELDs, they only have 6 months of data in the ELD. I recently had to do this for a review where in Omnitracs, I was able to go back to the beginning of January of this year. That's all that we have. So if you're doing it for the IFTA, then you're going to have to set up a procedure to go download those logs. You know, the easiest way would be download it per month and keep it. What happens if the ELD does get too hot or cold? Yeah, it stops working. Think about your cell phone. If you go to the beach or outside with your cell phone and it gets too hot, it shuts off. That's what goes on with these devices if it gets too cold or hot, and that's going to be problematic for your drivers. How far back does a log history of 6 months in the ELD systems? That's what's required by FMCSA regulations. When canceling your other contracts, make sure you know how soon to cancel. Omnitracs requires 90 days. That's a great question, a great point there. My recommendation right now during the transition is get a hold of your contracts. If you're thinking about switching better, get a hold of your better contract, get a hold of your ELD contract, figure out what tablets or ELD units are going to expire when, set up you a spreadsheet and start looking into, okay, I need to transition these 5 here and these 5 there and those kind of things. So that's a great question is you get ahead of it by getting your contracts in front of you and know what you're dealing with. And I know it's difficult to contact the vendor who's no longer going to be approved and then getting the information out of there. But you guys really thoughts on making FedEx making Motive the only qualified vendor. They're doing it to get better data. That's what they're doing. They are trying to solve their hours of service issue with the basic scores, and they are going to start coming after the contractors. I'm already seeing in the network. I had one driver that was disqualified out of FedEx because he had 30-minute break violations in 1 month. I'm seeing the unidentified driving emails that are going to the AOs. I'm seeing the missing log emails. this network is going to start getting smarter and smarter on the problems that we're having with the ELDs. And they went to one system so that they have better data to make better decisions on where the problems are. And that's what you're going to see going into 2026 is you're going to get more and more of those emails from Linehaul saying, hey, I got better data. I'm seeing you're having these problems. Why are you not fixing those? So again, get transferred. You pick the time, we're going into peak. Peak is not a good time to be doing transitions. After peak, great time, January and February. Look at those to do some of the transitions. Motive is having to move the entire network, and in the line haul space, that's probably around 19 to 20,000 trucks. So you got to think about supply and demand that don't wait for the last minute to go over to Motive, and then all of a sudden you don't have what you need going into August. And for right now, don't be afraid to transition 5 units when you have 20, another 5, and just find the best price you can for tablets for your operation. And thank you. I know that was a lot. We're gonna get the web address there, linehaulcentral.com/motive. It's wide open to you. Use it. Get your managers trained, get your drivers trained, get the manuals downloaded, get everything that you need there. And as we get more updates from Motive of things that we are seeing problematic, like the person that said, I'm having issues with the geofence or how to wipe the tablets and all, we're going to just keep adding to that to help you guys in this transition. And let us know, just send us an email when you're seeing stuff to say, I'm having this problem or that, and I'm already seeing that as contractors are coming live with this. But I thank you. I know y'all are super busy and all that, and I really appreciate that y'all are here today. Thank you.